The start of the summer, the Conservative government had to be shamed into taking action so that children wouldn't starve in this country. A footballer had to embarrass the government so that they actually take actions to make sure children wouldn't starve, because they were not going to do it any other way. Unfortunately, as of yet, they've not been embarrassed sufficiently enough. So when Labour put through a motion for kids to actually have food over Christmas, almost every Conservative voted it down, including my Conservative MP, Natalie Elphicke. Now, while I was setting up for this video, Phil from A Different Bias, which if you're not following his channel, you should, it's a great channel, he put out a video for this. So I'm not going to go through what he went through, but I am going to link the article from the New European, which lists every single Conservative who voted essentially to let children starve. But before we get into that, this is the email I sent Natalie Elphicke. Dear Mrs. Elphicke, this year you have supported a number of actions from the government that are difficult to defend. From Dominic Cummings violating quarantine rules and breaking road laws to supporting the government in breaking an international law that has already been agreed on. And yes, Cummings did break quarantine rules, and he did break law rules because he said he couldn't think he could see. That's why he got in a car and drove. That's breaking road laws. However, now you have voted to allow children to starve over Christmas. I have seen the depraved defence from others that not only show the callous views taken for those forced into poverty, but also highlight the biggest shameful acts of the last 10 years, as if they are worth celebrating. At the start of the summer, the government had to be shamed into making sure children in this country wouldn't starve to death. Considering there are people in your constituency who will suffer because of your vote, my question is very simple. How could you vote against feeding starving children in the UK? Regards, Samuel Moore. Now, if you're in my neck of the woods, even if you're not, if you have a Conservative MP, check the list of MPs from the New European. Again, I'll link it down below, and see if your MP was one of those who voted to force children into starvation. Just as a side little defence, a Tory backbencher, Brendan Clark-Smith, came out and said, "Where is the slick PR campaign encouraging absent parents to take some responsibility for their children? I do not believe in nationalising children." Should have a word with his boss then, really. "Instead, we need to get back to the idea of taking responsibility, and this means less celebrity virtual signalling on Twitter by proxy and more actions to be tackled to tackle the real cause of child poverty." The cause of child poverty, quite simply, is the Conservative Party. Esther McVey put 3 million children into poverty, or 3 million families into poverty, when she was running the Department of Work and Pensions due to the atrocious universal credit system. The Conservatives have cut funding to back to work programs, something that I brought up in Brexit videos as, by a sheer twist of fuck, the European Union has done more to get people like me back into work. They paid for me to get a forklift license, whereas the Conservatives have cut funding over and over and over again. The Conservatives now boast about how many food banks there are in the country, not realising that a single food bank is a shameful smear on this country. Let's take a look at what this food bank actually is. It's the country having to say our people can't earn enough money to feed themselves, so this thing has to exist. That is nothing worth celebrating, especially when the Conservatives have been in power for 10 solid fucking years. Homelessness has gone through the roof. And yet we're constantly hearing, oh no, the Conservatives are building more affordable housing. Problem is, when they build it, they sell it to private fucking landlords who put the rent at such that people can't afford to buy houses. The housing market itself is an inflated system egged on by the Conservatives. Hell, I work 2 to 9 jobs at any given day and I can't get a mortgage. And it's not like my jobs are inconsistent. I mean, hell, my main job is working in a care home. So me as a support worker, I can't get a mortgage. Wages have been stagnant for a decade. And yet Boris just this week in PMQs boasted that it was his government. It was the Conservative government that raised the minimum wage. Problem is, they had to. Because if they didn't, the working force of this country couldn't pay rent and every single one of us would be out on the fucking street. It wasn't because they wanted to. It wasn't because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't because, hey, inflation has gone up. Our wages have gone up. Your wages should go up as well. And hell, that will put more money into the economy. It was very simple. If they hadn't have done that piss poor attempt, the working backbone of this country would be on the fucking streets. And now, monsters like Natalie Elfrick have voted, in essence, to say, fuck your starving kids. We don't care. And it's the second time they've done it this year. Because remember, it took a footballer to shame the government into doing the right thing before summer. This is why it's important to get out and vote. This is why it is important to hold every single politician accountable. Now, Natalie Elfrick was not the MP beforehand. Her husband was. But here's the thing. Her husband did a lot of horrible things supporting the government. Over and over again for 10 years, he supported the policies that pushed families into poverty, that pushed children into starvation, that pushed the homelessness through the roof. And yet she ran as a Conservative. It is important to get out and vote because of things like this. So again, if you're in my neck of the woods or if you have a Conservative MP, send them an email. Try not to write a letter to them, purely because if you write a letter, there's no proof that you've done it. And by the time the next election comes around, we need these receipts. Either we need them on the record saying, no, I voted for this. I voted for your children to starve to death because of this. Or we need the fact that they were too ashamed to answer their constituents. Take care, keep safe, and I'll see you next time.